Hello, everybody, and welcome to Party Chat, our Patreon exclusive Q&A for everybody at that Min-Max Council tier. Thank you all for supporting Min-Max in a big, bad way, for listening to this. This exists because of you. Okay, let's dive a little bit into Saints Row here so we can free people up. Uncharted Wolf, you jumped on. You were curious about the new reboot of Saints Row, which is out this week, available on everything but the Nintendo Switch. But Uncharted Wolf, just so you know, just so you understand, you're welcome to call these shots. I've played maybe 2 to 3 hours of the new Saints Row. Jeff, how much have you played?
I'm right around that amount too.
Okay, and then Jacob Geller?
And me as well.
Okay,
yeah.
So very, very early impressions and takes on the new Saints Row. But Uncharted Wolf, what would you like to know about the new one?
Thank you for having me on, first of all. Always nice being up here.
Yeah.
I guess I have a couple of questions pertaining to Saints Row. I don't want to take too much time. I guess the first one, I'm looking at this Metacritic.
Right.
I just got to ask, what happened?
Yeah, what's the Metacritic sitting at? Run it down for us.
Just close the tab. Give me 1 second. I can get it right up. Podcast without me.
Yeah. Well, it's
I think it was around 6 or 7.
Whew. That is
yeah, it was
rough.
58 this morning.
That is.
I'll tell you,
rough.
I looked at the Polygon and the Game Informer reviews first, just because that's where I usually go, and was like, wow, I guess people really like this game. And then it turns out those are like the most positive of all of the reviews.
Yeah, I saw Game Informer's 8.5, and I was like, wonder if Andrew Reiner reviewed that. Like, this seems like the type of game that's up his alley, and it turns out it was. But Polygon was positive as well, huh?
I mean, Polygon was still kind of middling, but I think came down on like, hey, if you like Saints Row, you'll probably like this, which, spoilers, is not where I come down.
Ooh, interesting. Kyle Hilliard, are you alive? Are you here, buddy?
Yeah, I got a couple minutes. I wasn't sure if I'd missed the Saints Row chat.
No. Yeah, how much have you played of Saints Row?
I'm only like an hour or two.
Okay, we're all right in that.
None of us have
terrible.
played more than 3 hours.
Yeah.
That's the right podcast.
So Uncharted Wolf, yeah, it's a good question. Is what happened? Based on what I've played so far, the way that I would summarize what this game is, it's like it feels like a pretty good game from 2015. Is what I'm experiencing, but like visually pretty rough. It's last gen supported and stuff, but there's definitely moments where it's like, oh boy, I'm like early on, and it's not fair because we all just played Stray. There's a moment in like an early cutscene, I think maybe even like the opening cutscene, where like there's a cat that jumps on a table, and that was like the first indicator. I was like, oh boy, okay, this is
the robot cat.
Yeah, this is last gen as all hell. And then the game itself, in my mind, it's like, it seems fine. It seems like one of those, but I'm not a huge Saints Row defender, and so I wasn't ready to have this thing torn apart. But based on a couple of hours, I looked at the Metacritic score, and I was like, "Oof, that feels more brutal than it deserves." Based on what I've played so far.
Oh, it's right where I would be.
Really? So yeah, what do you think so far, Jacob?
I mean, there are just like. I don't know how to say this without being mean. There are things that I take for granted in games that I have realized I've been taking for granted because they're so bad in Saints Row. Like sound mixing.
Yes.
They're just like
yes.
those opening cutscenes. I have never been more conscious of characters going like, ugh, ooh, ugh.
Yeah.
Like when they're like making just grunts and exertion sounds. It's like the whole game sounds bad. Like the music seems like it's just not mixed right, and the voices are all just kind of so poorly mixed that I don't actually know if the performances are bad or not, but I just don't like listening to them.
It is really jarring. You're totally right. Where it's like, maybe they can patch this, but it seems like a weird thing to whiff on. And then also it defaults to subtitles, and the subtitles are like barely usable. It's just like the timing of them. It's like these things can be patched. Subtitles more than maybe the audio would be an easier fix, but it is confusing.
And it's like, this is actually something that the previous Saints Rows have done. Like the opening missions of Saints Row 3 and 4 are great, and they're really exciting, and they like play kind of, tongue in cheek, like a big AAA game, where in like Saints Row 3, you like pick through a helicopter in flight, and in Saints Row 4 aliens literally blow up the earth, and it's like big, and this it just feels like so much cheaper than those.
Yeah. Kyle, do you have thoughts on the opening?
I think I'm generally more positive than Jacob.
Yeah.
But I will say the opening, like the sort of, tutorial action opening is rough.
Yeah.
It feels very of the 360 era.
Yes.
It really sort of is a bad first impression. But I will say, once it opens up and I was able to just drive around and surprise, I was able to get the wingsuit missions.
Right.
I thought I was having some fun just like getting launched into the air and flying around. And so that part I have, I'm enjoying that element of it, sort of the open city kind of like go do some whatever you want to do. But yeah, the first, 45 minutes where you're sort of learning how to play the game in this like on rails section is particularly bad. I did not like that section.
Yeah, John Skovic on Twitch points out that Janet says that it starts okay and it gets much worse as it goes. But yeah, we're gonna be talking about it more on this week's episode of the Min-Max Show with Leo and Janet. But Jeff, do you have insight into highs and lows of Saints Row so far?
No, I'm in a similar boat, and part of it was kind of reflecting back, like Jacob said, on the previous games and thinking like, I don't remember just kind of the core gameplay feeling as unpolished as it does here.
Yeah.
Like my and maybe it's nostalgia or whatever, but my kind of retrospective memories of Saints Row is that it was more or less on par mechanically with, the open world games of its time, like Grand Theft Auto. And it was just that it was always super crazy and had an outrageous sense of humor, and you turn into a toilet or whatever.
Yeah.
And but from a playing perspective, I always felt like it was more or less on par with what other games were pulling off at that time. And this feels worse than previous even Saints Row games. And maybe if I went back and tried to play Saints Row the Third, I would feel the same, like maybe it doesn't feel as good as I remember.
I think that
playing.
is the case. I just played the remaster that came out not that long ago, and it is one of those like, okay, it's aged more than you think, just gameplay wise.
Sure, but just even once I got to the open world, like where I could run around and explore more.
Yeah.
Something about driving the cars, they just kind of feel more floaty, and just your character as well, it just kind of feels like things aren't anchored to the ground like you would kind of expect. It feels like maybe they dialed up the speed of movement and things, but it just, everything feels a little off and feels a little less polished than I was not expecting that would kind of be my main gripe with the game. I was thinking, well, is the humor going to be annoying to me at this point in my life? And, whatever else, kind of the staples. Will the staples of Saints Row still work for me? And I guess I've had less. I just haven't been able to get over that first hurdle of this gameplay. Just kind of feels unpolished and not, like I'm not really enjoying the combat that much. I'm not enjoying the driving that much compared to how I normally enjoy open world games like this.
Yeah. Spencer Bees, welcome to the show. Did you have thoughts or questions about Saints Row, the big reboot?
I was just going to ask if you all were going to have Janet on, which I think you already mentioned on the podcast this week.
Yeah.
Because her tweet summed it up well for me, I think. She quote tweets Kinda Funny's review of it and just said, "I beat Saints Row, so you don't have to."
Right. I can't believe
so.
That is.
I'm kind of interested to hear her rip this game apart.
I am interested as well. Like that is like God, Janet is a machine. Like the fact that she just beat this open world game. Like she just got that code not that long ago. Like it is.
She is bonkers. I don't know how she does it, honestly.
Yeah. I'm curious to hear her launch into it on the podcast this week. Hopefully it won't be too negative. But
I was really curious about kind of the late game of just like how wacky does it get? Like, do you unlock things that make the game more fun to play? You know, do you get... Because I know there's like a hover bike, which sounds fun, and certainly I don't have that now.
Right.
I mean, the main gripe I've heard is that it gets worse the longer you play. Because at least from some of the early talk I've seen, everyone says it starts out pretty strong, and you're thinking that you're going to be going into a better experience than what you ultimately get.
Yeah.
And I'm here to tell you that it doesn't start strong.
Right. Ugh.
Yeah. It is a weird. I also thought, like, Jacob, you said it kind of feels like downscaled or like it's a smaller budget, and it also just made me wonder what's going on with Volition.
Totally.
What is their current relationship with their publisher, and like what was their budget on this? Because those opening missions of just like, well, you're riding on the back of a jet or whatever, and you're just kind of shooting streams of guys that are coming out, and the whole time I was like, this is just not fun. There's nothing exciting about this. This feels very rote for a video game in 2022.
And it scares me when like a legendary studio like Volition is releasing this quality of a game. It's like, oof, I don't know what it says about the budget from Deep Silver or Play On, as it's been renamed recently instead of Koch Media or Koch Media or whatever. But it is just like, God, it's such a heartbreaker thinking about what it might mean for the team moving forward. And then also the studio that's been around for so long, and they were the tech powerhouse for so long. Now thing is just like limping over the finish line of production here.
Mm-hmm. I streamed a couple hours of the remastered, Red Faction Guerrilla a couple months ago, and like I still love that game. And it still feels good to play in a way that this, I would not expect a current gen PS5 game when I finally get to sit down with, one of my first open world games of this generation, like a wacky action oriented one, for it to just kind of feel this off and feel this lifeless.
Yeah, rough go. Uncharted Wolf, Spencer Bees, any more thoughts?
Yeah, I wanted to say something. What's it called? It seems like Saints Row right now, like, would you guys say it's like an issue of tone, like not knowing like what tone they want to go for? Because it seems like, I remember in the marketing, they wanted to try to say, oh, we want this to be more like Saints Row 1 and 2, but unless like 3 and 4 that were more wacky. And it feels like this game is kind of having an issue of understanding, do we want to be wacky or do we want to be like 1 and 2?
Well, I mean, I think it's like a weird retcon of history of people not remembering how wacky 2 got. But it seems like the tone of this one is somewhere between that 2 and 3 space. And so I don't think the characters are terrible. And actually, I wanted to say an early highlight that I gave me a better impression of the game than I ultimately got. The character creator is still amazing. It is awesome,
being able to like do that much to like change the look of your character is still really feels like kind of a, they are like the best in the biz at that.
Yeah.
I think if the other things in this game worked, I would not have a problem with the tone. It's like the shooting is so boring that maybe I would find it less boring if they gave me like a dubstep gun or whatever. But like it's not really the bad thing about the game.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think
I have to, while we're talking about the character creator real quick, because I got to duck out just in 2 minutes. This just a funny aside. I made my character without knowing the rest of the cast, and just coincidentally happened to make my character look almost identical to Nina. So like she popped up on screen. I was like, wait, is that me?
Oh no!
And like I think our hair color is different, but it's like she's like one of the core characters that she's part of your team. You see her a lot. So I've incidentally like sort of confused myself and made them twin sisters, which is just a weird accident.
Well, you can always go back and change it. Like I've been changing my character's voice over and over again of like, I've got to find one that works well and fits. And so it's weird, just every cutscene have a completely different voice, but it's kind of fun that you can be so fast and loose with that.
Yeah.
All right.
I got to roll out.
All right. Thanks a lot for joining us, Optimus Prime. We appreciate it. Uncharted Wolf, any other final thoughts on Saints Row?
Yeah, I guess like one question to close it off back to tonal shifts. Do you think like a tonal shift between like games can work, or do you feel like it has to stay between the same? Because like I was thinking of this because I was playing through the Infamous games, and the tonal shift between 1 and 2 is so jarring because 1 is so gritty and dark, and then 2 is kind of like an MCU movie and how much more laid back it is.
I think if it's kind of like a slow transition, it's kind of funny to go back and see how these series started and stuff. So I think
yeah,
it can work.
I really like Infamous 1 and 2, and it was kind of, that was a cool transition just because it was like, oh my gosh, look how much more money they have now to spend on that game. But yeah, I think, I mean, like a kind of lesser one, but like the Wolfenstein New Order to New Colossus changes tone pretty dramatically. And I have one that I prefer, but like both of those games work.
Yeah. Well, Saints Row, everybody, probably don't get it unless you're a huge fan and you don't mind the complaints that people are volleying out there. So,
thanks for having me.
Buy everywhere. Yeah, thanks so much for the support, Uncharted Wolf. Really appreciate it. Thanks for kicking this whole thing off. This was a clip from Party Chat, our Patreon exclusive podcast that airs every single Monday. The podcast features cohorts and friends of the show, contributors, talking directly to the MinMax community. So if you're looking for even more podcasts from MinMax, this is the place to go. Just head to patreon.com/MinMax with 2 N's, support us at the $5 tier, and you can listen to Party Chat every single week. Thanks so much, everybody. We appreciate it.